So you're interested in how koans work or something? Or, I mean, is that what you're interested in?
No, how koans work, how is it possible to create or already exist the kind of scale of complexity for the koans?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, it depends on, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of using koans, right? So it depends on which school of Zen, or actually more specifically than that, which lineage, what your teacher lineage is there are different methods that they have, different ways of using koans and so on. And so there can be, I mean, on one extreme, you can have like as many as like 2,500 koans. And it's basically a step-by-step process that leads somebody through these, this whole set of koans. And supposedly, by the time you finish, then you have some kind of enlightenment, or it's like a certification of some kind of enlightenment or something like, something like that. And that's on one extreme, and the other extreme is you only have one koan. And all you need to do is answer one, and that's it. And so there's a lot of different ways to use how koans are used and what koans are and something like that, because you have these different ways of using them. So with the school that has only one koan, basically you have to find your personal problem. And when it's sort of like finding your source. You find your source, and when you really answer that question, whatever that is, that's all you need to do to have the transformation.
And who puts the question?
You find the question for yourself.
But
you find the question for yourself with the guidance of the teacher. I mean, if you come in with some kind of a silly question or something like that, then that's not going to be satisfactory. But when you find your own question, I mean, at a fundamental level of who you are, basically, then you just stay with it. You could stay with the same question for years.
Okay. I remember that you told very interesting story about you, how you solved the koan, and can you tell it to me again, because I don't remember fully.
Okay, well, basically, the koans are there's they're structured in such a way that there's not an easy answer. There's not a rational answer to a koan.
I understand that.
And so in order to answer a koan, you have to, it's sort of like you, how do I say? It's like, it's essentially, you use your intuition to answer, to really answer a koan. So you end up in the situation where to answer a koan, it's sort of like in English we say, you hit the wall, right? And you try everything, you try all of your, let me say, your regular ways of solving problems,
Mhm.
right?
Да.
And nothing works. Nothing works, right?
Mhm.
So that's the point at which that's the point at which you reach your limits, right?
Mhm.
And at that point, the point that you reach your limits, that's when you get to that place, then you're up against that wall of, and you can't, it's like, that's what you've got to get through. And so it's like accessing, how do I say, another part of yourself that you don't usually access or something like that, I mean, and it doesn't happen by it's sort of like, you have to, what is one Zen teacher told me once, he said, you try to, you have to try and try and try. You have to try, you're up, you don't know what to do, right? But you're in the situation, you keep hitting your head against the wall, and you try this, you try that, and nothing works, and you go in to see the Zen teacher to try and answer the question, and no, he yells at you, and you've understood nothing, and and so on and so forth. And at a certain point, there's like kind of like at a certain point, there's like a breakthrough. But it doesn't happen because of you figured it out, or because of the rational mind or something like that. It happens because of something else. And so this one teacher described to me, it says you have to try, but in the end, all of your effort is meaningless, because it's not what the result comes from something else. And it doesn't come from, it's not as a result of your, how do I say, your regular mind or whatever, figuring these, it's not like you figured it out, it's just like you have to open up another part of yourself, basically. And that's the process. That's what the process basically is. So there's a Japanese guy whose name is Shinichi Hisamatsu. Hisamatsu is the family name. Shinichi is the first name. And he had what he had this thing that he called the fundamental koan for life.
One.
And instead of fundamental.
Fundamental.
Yeah, right. Fundamental, one koan, right? For life. And he said the fundamental koan is when you've done everything that you can do, right? And nothing works, then what do you do? Okay. So you're up against this point, you're up against this, you try all of your regular ways of doing things, right? And nothing works. And then what do you do? And then what people do at that point is they do all kinds of, they can be crazy things or whatever. They don't have to be crazy things, but they do all kinds of things. What do people do at that point? Some people give up. Some people fight harder. Some people try to figure out a way to run around the wall. Some people try to bash the wall down. It's like, you have, everybody has to kind of like to have their own individual response at that point. And at that point that you've got this, your own individual response, that's the, that's where your, how do I say, your unconscious part comes up, and that's what you got to work through. That's what you got to get through. But you're not working directly with the conscious mind. You're working with your tendencies, let's say, your character tendencies or whatever, your personality structure or whatever it is, and that's what has to get transformed.
I understand this more or less, but just to understand it like more clearly, can you tell me like what's happened with you? Did you begin to study Zen, then came to some koans, and what's happened?
Well, in my own situation, my history with koans is a very crooked road, let's say.
Mhm.
And I never was a good koan student, right? I mean, there are people who answer koans, and I mean, you know, you go to these teachers and they've got 2,500 koans, you know, to go through, and they start going through koans like that, you know. And I was never like that. So I only answered a few koans, very few, in over many years, right? And finally, what happened was that I just got tired of it, and it led me to another Zen teacher. And this particular Zen teacher, he said, oh, you only need one. You only need one koan. You don't have to worry about the teacher that I ended up with, you know. He said, you only need one koan. You don't have to answer 2,500 koans. And when you find your own koan, it's the same kind of situation, you know. You're up against yourself, and that's what that's, you know, you have to learn how to stay with a koan. You have to learn how to work with a koan, so you're not thinking about it, you know. You're not like using your rational mind. You have to learn how to stay with it, and your consciousness being able to focus on it, but without thinking about it. And that's what you know, it's, in other words, there's a training that's involved in doing this, you know, learning how to work with koans. And basically, by being able to, the difference was for me, when it was, you know, with the teacher that I was ended up studying with, he said that your koan is you. If you think of your koan as being something outside yourself, something that you're doing to yourself, then you're never going to answer the koan. It's not something that you can like try to, you know, you as a person try to transform yourself. It doesn't work that way. And so he would say, don't look outside yourself. You have to learn how to stay inside yourself.
But where is the borders?
Pardon?
Where is the borders? Boundaries?
Where's the boundaries? Oh, in the end, there are no boundaries. You know, it's in the end, there's no boundaries at all. You know, boundaries just disappear. But in the process of you know, it's like there's no difference between you or anything else fundamentally. You know.
So you did you find this your own koan?
Yeah, I can say that.
And did you find a solution of this?
No, I haven't found a solution to it yet. I'm not enlightened, you know, so I can't really say that I've fully been able to answer it. But the how do I say, the process of I mean, it took me a long time to understand how to just be, and how to just be with awareness without doing anything, without trying to do anything to me, just trying to be in my how do I say, pre-existing self, not the self that I've created for the, you know, for daily life and to function in the world and so on, but just my pre-existing self, the one that was always there, always already there.
Right, but what do you intend to finally solve the koan, or you will just stay with it all your life?
Oh, of course I have the intention to. Of course I have the intention to finally solve it. Of course. But this is a how do I say? it's like a it's like this one guy that I was referring to earlier. He said, you have to try. Your intention is an important part of the process, but fundamentally, the result doesn't come from your intention.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try, you know, you have to like, it's kind of a both. You have to try and not try at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds kind of crazy, but that's kind of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what's if we will think about complexity, like the first koans you tried to solve, what's you think, are they were more simple than the koan which you are trying to solve right now?
Oh yeah, they were a lot more simple.
Okay, can you make an example? What was a koan? How did you work with them?
I had one koan which was the Zen teacher would hold up a stick,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he would say, how do you become one with the stick?
Mm-hmm.
That was it. How do you become one with the stick?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And at first I tried to, you try to say these things like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. He would just yell at me, you haven't understood anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And or various responses or something, various kind of negative responses or something like that. And then finally, I realized that explanations or words or whatever weren't what he was looking for, right? He just wanted me to demonstrate
Mm-hmm.
being one with the stick.
Mm-hmm.
So one time I walked in to see him, and he picked up his stick and he held it up like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stood up.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting.
Да, конечно.
And then he started laughing. He said, oh, you finally understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's the most simple koan in this school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for you to finally get that?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly, but it was several years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm. And what was that? It was Rinzai or?
Yeah, he was a Rinzai teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Rinzai teacher from Miyoshin, from a temple called Miyoshinji in Kyoto. So I realized that explanations or words or whatever weren't what he was looking for, right? He just wanted me to demonstrate
Mm-hmm.
being one with the stick.
Mm-hmm.
So one time I walked in to see him, and he picked up his stick and he held it up like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stood up.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting on the floor, so I just stood up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then he dropped the stick and I fell to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he picked the stick up again, I stood up again.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Да, конечно.
And then he started laughing. He said, oh, you finally understand.
Mm-hmm.